Good morning. I'm City Auditor Alex Marion, and today we're here to talk about pensions. The City of Syracuse is and should be an employer of choice for people in our community, not because of the salaries we offer, but because of the generous benefits, affordable health care, and a pension plan, an old school defined benefits pension plan. That's the topic of my latest report, Rethinking Retirement, which looks at pension costs to the city. And we remind employees about their participation in the pension system. We are releasing it today in the last week of open enrollment as a reminder to city staff that now is the time to make changes to your benefits. City employees are part of the New York State Local Retirement System and the New York State Police and Fire Retirement System, the LRS and the PFRS, which have been in existence since 1921 and are very capably managed by New York State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli. As the sole trustee, the State Comptroller is responsible for investing the pension fund valued at more than $150 billion. Full-time employees are required to participate, and your contributions are based on a system of tiers based on your start date. All employees enrolled since May 2012 are in Tier 6, including me, and their contributions are based on a percentage of their income, and they vest in the system, meaning they are guaranteed to receive benefits after 5 years. Pension contributions are divided between the employer and the employee. Each year, the state comptroller sends localities a bill for their share, and that bill is based on the fund's rate of return. So it's a pretty variable number. This year, the city's bill will exceed $35 million. The total cost of salaries and benefits in the city budget is over $200 million, more than half of the Syracuse city budget. Pension costs have increased 36% over the last 4 years. And by the end of the decade, we are projecting pension contributions will grow another 58%, or $17 million more, to over $50 million. Pension costs now represent 10% of the overall city budget, which is also true for Albany, Rochester, and Yonkers. This is a statewide and national fiscal challenge. Chicago currently has a $34 billion shortfall in their pension plan, and everyone knows the story of Detroit, Michigan, which filed for bankruptcy in 2013 after facing a $3.5 billion pension deficit and made extensive mistakes in borrowing for operating costs to fill that gap. To be clear, neither Syracuse or New York State are in that position, but this is a growing cost and we need to be watching it closely. Our employees are the most valuable asset we have for the city of Syracuse. They deserve to have a solid career, be well compensated, and receive a generous retirement package for the work they do for our community. But these costs are growing. Our revenue, as I've highlighted in previous reports, is not. To put it in perspective, we received $76 million in AIM funding, unrestricted cash from New York State, this year. We turned around and sent half of that right back down the thruway to Albany to pay our pension bill. The city needs to be mindful of these costs, and to do so, we will need help from New York State, which mandates this pension program, to manage the critical expense. I'm calling on New York State to enact legislation that would assume the employer side of the pension costs on behalf of cities across New York State. This would create a substantial cost savings to the city of Syracuse. Now let's put that in perspective. If New York State assumed the employer side contribution for municipalities across New York State, that would be a little over $5 billion. That's about 2.2% of the entire state budget. That's less than is spent on Medicaid, that's less than is spent on public transit, that's less than is spent on school aid. Pension costs are 10% of the Syracuse city budget, and that comes at a tremendous opportunity cost of paying current employees, delivering essential services, and making long-term investments in our infrastructure. Even if New York State didn't pick up the whole expense, but instead assumed the pension costs of 2% or greater, which would be the same number as the property tax cap, that would still make a serious difference in the city's costs over time. So we need New York State, not just Syracuse, but cities across New York State, Buffalo, Rochester, Albany, Yonkers, Utica, Binghamton. All of our communities need New York State to be a partner in the growing costs of pensions as they impact local budgets. So we really need New York State to step up and do the right thing and help us out with these major expenses. With that, I'll take any questions you may have, Jessica.
I just briefly looked at it, but what are some of the other solutions? Like one that popped up that I noticed was paying the bills earlier.
Yes.
Are there some other kind of things you could touch on that might help alleviate
Yeah,
this?
absolutely. So you do receive a discount if you pay your pension bill by December 15th. And I'm pleased to say that is something that the city of Syracuse currently does. We need to make sure that it is something we continue to do, however. That is a choice that we can make. It is not a guarantee that we must do that every year, and I think that the city of Syracuse needs to proactively take the steps to ensure that we are doing that every single year. We also highlight some other options that are a little bit bigger picture. For example, right now, New York State does not allow municipalities to invest in the pension fund. That could be a way to guarantee a greater rate of return. We're always looking for ways, safe, stable investments for our money. We have seen through some new cash management practices, we have seen and the fact that we've had the ARPA funds sitting in ostensibly a savings account for the last few years, we've seen a return on investment, just kind of an interest for those, and we're looking for ways to do that. We think parking money in the pension system that we could later draw on may be a way to do that. Additionally, New York State should pass legislation allowing municipalities to pre-fund retiree health care benefits. Now this is getting pretty wonky and pretty into the weeds, but right now New York State and the Government Accounting Standards Board, which kind of determines how governments can do their accounting and do their financial management, don't have any mechanism for localities to invest in, to pre-fund their retiree health benefits. If we were able to do that, even though that may be a little bit more of an upfront cost right now, if we were able to do that, that could help ease the cost in future years, in near years, when we have to be paying those funds if we hold them in escrow out into the future. So those are a couple things we would be able to do to really help out and really ensure that we can pre-fund and have a healthier fiscal outlook going forward.
I know this is still pretty new, but have you gotten any feedback about any of your suggestions yet or findings?
So I've shared this with the administration. I think that they're always open for ideas to have a larger conversation about our fiscal health. I was speaking with one of our common councilors yesterday who's really interested in looking at overall more ways that New York State could help us, including increasing aid payments, helping with pension costs. I think that I was just sharing this report with some of my colleagues and friends in Albany and the state government world. So I think that there's a big appetite for doing something about some of these costs. I think we just need to have some organized ideas and an organized plan. I think this lays out at least the beginnings of that conversation so that we can say, hey, New York State, we need you to step up and be a good financial partner for local governments.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to take a lot of teamwork to solve any of this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Nothing happens in local government that doesn't involve teamwork. I'm pleased to say, since I've been in office now for almost a year, I've had the great opportunity to work with colleagues and partners in cities and towns and villages across New York State. I've developed relationships up and down the thruway, up and down the state of New York to find new ways to help improve the financial challenges facing not just Syracuse, but communities across New York State, because we have much more in common than not. And whether you're talking about New York City or Buffalo or Albany or Ithaca, we have a lot of these same issues in common, and we can try to find solutions that work for all of us.
That's all I got.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.